We spoke to a leading media psychologist all about anxiety, what it is, how it can affect daily tasks and social life, but most importantly, how it can be overcome using physical activity to help improve our mental health. Here's what she had to say. Right, so there are a lot of common kind of misconceptions about anxiety, what it is, if it's just a case of being a nervous individual. Could you kind of explain what anxiety really is?
I guess at its most basic level, anxiety is the feeling that something's going to happen and I won't be able to cope. Now, subclinically, that kind of just makes you a bit kind of worried. So you might prepare for that thing and you might be a little worried, but you're able to kind of put the thoughts, in a way that doesn't kind of make you feel very, very uncomfortable. When it gets really problematic is when we start seeing people kind of from a psychological point of view, not being able to get rid of those thoughts. So really catastrophizing and enlarging them from an emotional point of view, kind of feeling very worried, very agitated. From a physiological point of view, you may have increased heart rate and inability to sleep. So it can start from something subclinical, which kind of just makes you feel uncomfortable, but may actually focus you to something that becomes problematic that really gets in the way of you functioning.
You spoke about some of the kind of physical responses and obviously anxiety being a barrier to being able to function. How exactly would you say that anxiety can affect individuals both socially and just in kind of daily tasks as well?
So I think there's a lot of ways. I think one of the biggest problems with anxiety is that avoidance is the thing that we tend to use to cope with it, right? So we're anxious about something that we avoided, and that usually makes the anxiety bigger. Like, so if you can imagine, I generally don't like parties, turns into, well, I avoid parties, turns into, well, maybe I avoid groups of people, turns into, well, actually, I don't want to leave my house ever, right? So that's how it escalates. And what you want to do is be able to kind of manage your anxiety and kind of find a way of reacting to not your fear, but what's actually going on. And I think it's really great because it's Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and we need to kind of really look at what's going on. And what I love is what Every Mind Matters is doing. They're launching a new campaign to encourage people to make the first move for their mental health. And what we're really speaking about is this proactivity when it comes to our mental health and well-being. We understand proactivity when it comes to our physical health. When it comes to our mental health, we don't. And one of the things that we know is physical activity can profoundly impact your ability to cope with anxiety. It raises those sort of feel-good hormones. There's often a social element to it. It can improve our sleep. And all of those things that physical activity brings can really mitigate the effects of anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you spoke about there the making the first move. And obviously, I think for a lot of people, that's the hardest part and the scariest part of moving towards a more positive mental health. How would you kind of advise making that first move in itself and also making it appear less frightening to people who are worried about making it?
I think there's a lot that can be done. I think the first thing is to learn how to take your own temperature, right? If you've been kind of feeling that, things don't feel right, I'm feeling more agitated, my sleep's affected, then it's time to kind of look into it. And I think one of the things that you can often get right is how you sleep, how you eat, and how you move. So I would encourage people listening to go on the Every Mind Matters website. It has a lot of NHS, approved apps and advice on how to help you cope. I mean, some of my favorites, there's a couch to 5K. So this idea of like, but I haven't moved in ages. There's ways around that, right? It's very inclusive. So there's couch aerobics for people that are less mobile. There's wonderful email lists that you can sign up to that give you literal tips every day to kind of help you cope. And I think, finally and really critically, I think it's recognizing that like good health, good mental health doesn't fall into your lap. It's something that you need to work towards. And one of the best things you can do, is becoming more physically active.
100%. And if you're talking from a scientific point of view, what's the kind of explanation between the links of having a good physical activity and the effects that then has on your mental health?
We know that physical activity increases our feel-good hormones, our endorphins, which is wonderful. But we also know that many times physical activity involves a social element. So whether it's going for a walk with a friend or going for a swim or even just kind of getting out and seeing your neighbors, we know that that social element really impacts, again, those feel-good hormones. We also know the very act of going outside and getting some sunlight can help with our sleep, and we know that getting good sleep kind of excuse me feeds in with our better way that we cope with anxiety. So all of these things together really work to make you feel more in control, right? I mean, again, being more physically active also means that you're more likely to kind of focus on your work. When we're more focused on our work, we feel more in control of our lives overall. So it's all these little things that work together.
Yeah, thank you. It's really great what they're doing this week, in particular being Mental Health Awareness Week, to try and help everybody out who is maybe not feeling so great. If people listening want a little bit more information on anything, where can they go to get that?
You can search Every Mind Matters to make the first move towards your mental health.